in the 4 Ps is for pre-agreement. This is a recent photograph of the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative, which is ever-changing. It's an 11-year-old community academic medical partnership. Jeannie and I are both founding members, and Alex is a more recent member of the collaborative. It was founded by anti-racists who researched and sought out community-based participatory research as a mechanism to deal with health disparities. One of the foundations of the collaborative is our anti-racism work, and all members are required to undergo a 2-day anti-racism training as a part of membership. I never can get this. She always has to tell me. The mission of the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative is to assist communities in dealing with health disparities. The goal is to try to improve health in communities by addressing systemic issues, by looking at systems. And the strategy is to focus on anti-racism principles and work on the development of systems that are both transparent and accountable to communities. The mechanism that we developed early in our collaborative was co-authorship guidelines. We developed a formal document to address co-authorship in the partnership. It was not there at the beginning of the partnership, but was developed as we saw the need for it to happen. One of the things that we want to talk about is in starting a partnership, it's really important how you handle the early relationships. You need to learn about each other's culture. And if you go into a community that has not participated in research, they need to learn about the academic culture just as much as you need to learn about their culture. Finding a common language is really important. And part of that common language for the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative is the language of anti-racism as a basis for how we talk about health disparities and how we talk about our work. But equally important, what we found is that from the academic perspective, the academics really need to share with the community what their jargon is, you know, how they're going to talk about things, what their acronyms are. And at UNC, acronyms go on forever. And it's important to you know, get those acronyms out in the front, but it's also important to establish a kind of relationship where community members are comfortable saying, I have no idea what you just said. Could you tell me one more time what that acronym stands for?
IRB.
HPDP.
CDPR.
But the other piece that I think is really important for academics to share is why publication is important to them. You know, your run-of-the-mill folks out in the community do not understand the relationship between publication and academic success. They don't understand job security in publication. They don't understand what tenure is about. And all of those things are important for the community to learn. They don't know what peer review means. So, you know, that kind of information needs to be shared, and you need to have conversations about what that is. It's also important for the community members to be comfortable talking about how they feel information needs to be shared. What are the venues that they think are important, and what are the audiences that they think are important to get that information? And one of the complaints about communities in relationship to academic research has always been not knowing what's going on, not knowing what the results are of what was done to them. So we feel it's really important to, again, talk about that up front. The other piece is talking to the community that you're working with about what their interest is in publication. You know, there may be lots of the community members that just think it's kind of a fun idea to have their name on a paper, but you may also be working with people in nonprofits who plan an academic future and for whom the publication is really important for them as well. In terms of where they're going. So I think it's important, again, to have open communication and talk about this. And then I think that there needs to be a mechanism going forward for how the community is updated about what's happening with the study, you know, what preliminary findings are, what the results are, and that in turn, the communication be the other direction, that the community lets the academic know of their concerns and what's happening from the community's perspective on the research. Part of this question is also where to publish or present. There are lots of different ways to present information. The first 5 of these, classroom lectures, newspaper, TV or radio news, websites, Facebook, and community forums, are common ways to share information in a community. And in community settings, probably the TV or radio news may be one of the most important ways for information to be disseminated. And I think, again, in looking at your demographic, depending on who you're working with, especially if you're working with a younger group, you know, social media is really important in terms of how communications are done. The last 3 options, poster presentations, oral presentations, peer-reviewed journals, are much more important in academic settings. And again, we want to make sure that the community members are educated about what peer review means, what the relationship of that paper is to the person who sponsors your grant, you know, how that relationship is affected, and how it affects your plans for future funding. So all of those things are things that the community may not be aware of and that need to be talked about up front. But as you can see, and as we're demonstrating, we think it's really important that in any venue that both the academic and community partners are involved in presentations. Both peer-reviewed presentations and then public presentations. So what we did is put together co-authorship guidelines, and we think that that's an important thing. The conversation about who owns the research information and the products of the research. For us, it was important to establish up front that the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative is the owner of that property, and that everyone else involved, including the researchers, have to go to the collaborative to use that information. When you talk about what kind of a committee reviews and decides what's going to happen, there needs to be a balance between community and academic to get both viewpoints there on that. And one of the things that we thought was really important also, in addition to having a formal review process, was having a fast-track process. Because there are times when one of the community partners or one of the academic partners has the opportunity to do a presentation in 2 days or in 5 days, and we needed to have a mechanism for how to handle that, so that it was reviewed by the Publications and Dissemination Committee, but it could be done in an expeditious way. And then we think it's important that you talk about the criteria for authorship. And it may not be the same for the community and the academic partners, but there should be accountability for anybody who's involved in being an author, and some kind of standard for participation. So again, that's, yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
I
please interrupt. At any point, it's fine.
About your first question, and I think, Jean, you sparked this because you used the acronym IRB. Did you have any challenges with respect to the products of the research or the property of the partnership, and the human subject data and the IRB? Because I know typically the IRB thinks that the data belongs to the university. Do you have
IRB doesn't govern that.
Well, yeah, but they don't govern that, but that's something that they want to know about, like where does the data?
It was kept while we were recruiting, et cetera. It was kept in a locked drawer in an office, and it's on a secure server.
Right.
But there are community partners who have access to what's on the server, and so there are certain ones who, and they went through the certification to have it. So what we were talking about is when the study is done as well, that the data remain with the collaborative.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, UNC houses the data, but
It belongs.
how it's
Who
disseminated.
gets access to it?
Right.
2 other questions, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody behind me.
Carrie.
Carrie?
Yeah, I have a question about the products. If there's a deliverable, like a teaching tool or a curriculum that's developed as a result of the research, I would a nonprofit community partner to potentially want to use those tools as a funding stream
Right.
for technical assistance for their, how do you handle that? And in terms of the university interests in possessing those tools and the particular researchers and et cetera?
Are you gonna answer that?
I came to you all for that. Ask for forgiveness later. My answer.
I mean, if it's funded with federal monies, it's public. You can't make a profit from it, right? And you can't sell it because it's taxpayers' money that generated that. And so we make things available on the Greensboro Health Disparities website, HPDP website, to make that available. Is that what you're asking?
Well, kind of. If the nonprofit partner wants, it gets asked by another nonprofit to come and teach about the tool
Yeah,
or deliver the curriculum,
right.
can the nonprofit get paid to do that?
Oh, yeah, they can get
Consulting hours. for
consulting
20%.
hours, right. But it still has to go through the committee. The nonprofit member would come to this committee and say, I've been invited to do this and this, and we'll be paid to do this and this.
Okay.
And the key point is that having that conversation between the university and community partners. And again, what's so wonderful about the collaborative is it's got a structure for having that conversation. And so what we're trying to encourage is to have that conversation somewhere. Yeah, yeah, if possible, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something you could have in the pre-agreement.
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
that is,
Yep.
Exactly.
exactly.
But could you give a quick idea of what the approval process is?
She's gonna do that.
Okay.
I'll get there. Okay, so I'm not going to talk anymore about co-authorship because Alex is going to talk a little bit about this. This is a sample. This is the first 2 pages of our Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative Publications and Dissemination Guidelines. And I want to just read the first paragraph, the introductory paragraph, which sort of describes it. Members of the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative have a unique relationship which comes with the opportunity and responsibility to share our experiences and results with others. The process of sharing can take many forms: presentations in informal and professional settings, communicating with the media, preparation of reports and manuscripts, and information on our website. We feel that non-academic as well as academic publications should be encouraged as an important form of knowledge dissemination. For the purpose of this document, the term publication refers to any and all forms of dissemination of information. So, and this is an outline of what we have included in our guidelines. The first is the makeup of the Publications and Dissemination Committee, and the balance between academic and community partners in that. Specifics on the role of the lead author and what the responsibilities and requirements are for being the lead author on a publication. The criteria for authorship, and there is some flexibility of it in terms of the people involved, but there is expected to be significant contribution by each of the authors, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every author writes. Some of the authors may be involved more in conversations about analysis of the data, or bouncing ideas off about how to do it, but there has to be significant input from each of them. The authorship order, which again, I think it's a good conversation to have beforehand. If you're going to put together a document, be clear up front about who's going to be the lead author. And for the most part, we've been able to have pretty open conversations about that in the collaborative, and usually some agreement. And members have been very helpful in, for instance, when we have a postdoc that needs to be a lead author, everybody agreeing to say, great, let's make Michael the lead author, he needs this publication, whatever. Acknowledgements, especially in a community partnership, there's going to be a lot of people that need to be acknowledged. And again, having set out how those acknowledgements are going to be done. I'm going to show you a draft of the publication proposal, but then, in a sec, well, so there needs to be, you know, a clear guideline about what the approval and review process is, and then, as I said, the fast track approval, so that things can be done expeditiously. And then this is the last page of our document, which shows you what is asked for. It's just a one-page summary of the publication proposal. You know, the date, the host that is planned for the publication, the title, the lead author, other people who are expected to participate, a summary description, and why it's important, and then data sources, technical assistance, et cetera. And then the bottom part is for the approval of the committee. And again, the way that we function in the collaborative is that there is an open invitation to participate. When people are proposing to do a publication, a poster, a peer-reviewed journal article, people in the collaborative are invited to participate, and people can choose whether they want to be involved or not. And you know, it varies from time to time who becomes involved. Often during our research, we have people who are involved in one aspect and not another, and that often determines who's going to be involved in one paper or another. And now I'm going to turn it back to Jeannie.